Thanks for making the drive over here to do this.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm really excited. I appreciate you taking the time to bring me on so we can talk about attached families.
And congratulations on Seed 20. That's really exciting. That's a big deal.
I was on cloud 9 for like well, I'm still on cloud 9. I was going to say a few weeks, but no, I'm still on cloud 9. I was in absolute shock when I opened my email. And then, of course, they're like, we're not announcing it yet, so you have to keep it a secret.
Oh, okay.
And I was
bet that was hard. You just want to tell everyone, right?
I'm like, oh, you can't do that to me.
Yeah.
But yes, very, very excited to be a part of Seed 2020.
Yeah.
We have so many 20s, so hopefully, I'm hoping that they'll really do something fun with that, because I think that's cool, and I just love that it's giving me opportunities like this to get attached families' name out there, because as much as we've grown in a year and a half, we're basically growing by the families that I'm finding, which was my original goal, to find as many families as possible, because I just wanted people not to feel so isolated and alone.
Right.
Because there's so much shame in this life and so much judgment. So many people just think it's bad parenting, and it's not. It's not. It's the child's brain just didn't develop properly.
Right.
So we're reaching, and which is great, like so many families, and it's amazing. And I love that we're there to support them, and we're ready to take it to the next level. But it's so important to get society aware of this issue, because I really personally feel that until society becomes as outraged as we are, we're never going to see the change that the children and families actually deserve. Yeah.
Well, you'll probably be disappointed to hear this, but I hadn't heard of developmental.
I'm not disappointed at all. I'm not even in any shock. I hadn't heard of it either. No one had heard of it. I got the diagnosis and I said, what the heck is this?
Yeah. So it's developmental
trauma disorder
and
reactive attachment disorder. So right now it's reactive attachment disorder.
Okay.
What it really is, and goes back to, is developmental trauma disorder. The problem with that is there's this thing called the DSM, which is the diagnostics manual. If you're in that, if you're a doctor or psychiatrist, like you have to use what's in the DSM to make a diagnosis. So they tried really hard to get it in the last DSM 2 years ago, and it was denied.
That's what I was reading about it.
And
And I imagine if something is not in there, then that significantly limits the resources that are available to people.
100% limits it. And the DSM, which is, the worst part about it, is people would think that in the DSM it's actually diagnoses, but no, it's only it's really used for insurance codes. So they have to go by whatever they can bill insurance for.
Yeah.
So, and who doesn't want developmental trauma disorder in the DSM? Because it can't be helped with drugs. So the pharmaceutical companies fight it.
Right.
And the insurance companies fight it, because the only things that really work with it are neurofeedback therapy, biofeedback therapy. And then once you get the connections because the brain has plasticity. So you can fix the brain and change the brain over a course of a lifetime. So with neurofeedback and biofeedback, you can actually make those connections in the brain that didn't develop properly, so that the child can actually, reduce the rages, reduce, the defiance and all that. They don't want to be like that. It's not their fault. They're not bad kids.
Right.
It's not from not having rules or a parent, trying, they can become very violent. They can become severely self-harming, lots of suicides from it. Some of them, use their bodily fluids as weapons against their family. It's sad and it's scary, and it could be helped. And we've known about it for over 70 years. And you would think that something that was found out about and something that could help it, that was found out about back in the 1940s, that by 2020, we would be giving these children a chance, but we're not. We're still not covering it, and we're still not supporting their families. Instead, we're blaming the people who foster and adopt them and calling them, bad parents. And it's, a lot of mom shaming and parent blaming. Terrible. And it's awful. Awful.
I mean, it's so unfortunate that a lot of the research that needs to go into it, which if there even is more research that needs to go into it, like if there's not money in the end product that can be delivered, there's not a whole lot of incentive for people to put money in it, which is so disappointing because there's so many people that need help with that.
Well, exactly. And first of all, everybody knows pharmaceutical companies don't want to lose their money, their golden egg. And also many people know that almost every single foster child is on some sort of medication. Right. So they have these severe behaviors from the trauma that they've experienced, and we just give them another pill or up the dosage. And so that's why when you hear, little Sally's been in 11 foster homes in the last 3 years. Well, it's not because she was so darn cute and everyone said, get this cute girl out of my house, or, Johnny's been, in 27 foster homes in the last 6 years, and everyone's just like, how could that be? And then their heart breaks for this child and, ooh, someone adopt him. But the truth of the matter is it's not because he was so funny and intelligent. When you hear those high numbers, you know that the child's behavior was so severe that they can't function in a family setting.
Right.
But instead of saying, getting them the proper treatment, they just take them from that house and then they put them in your house and don't tell you anything about it. Yeah. They don't tell you about their severe behaviors.
And the parents aren't equipped. They don't have the resources to take that on.
Not at all. They never even mentioned the words RAD or developmental trauma disorder in any of my training, in any of the state MAP classes.
What was your background in again?
My college degree is elementary education and social sciences. Okay. I was a dual major, but my background was I started out in IT at IBM, and I became a project manager and worked my way up the ladder, and then I got a little burnt out on that, and it's that 2007 when everybody lost their job. I was part of that, and so then I switched over to recruiting IT people because, I had the background and the knowledge of IT to be able to do that. And while in that role, I became a foster mom. And then so I continued recruiting for a little bit, but then I went in back to, some process management, process analyst type work, which allowed me to be home because the kids need constant supervision.
Could you tell your story? So that was really kind of what triggered me to reach out to you. Reading your story, it was a mix of frustration and inspiration, reading through like what you went through to care for your children. So I think that'd be a good way to kind of explain
I would
what this means.
love to tell my story. So I always knew I wanted to foster and adopt. Honest to goodness, since I was a little kid. And I think it's funny because I think every little girl says on the playground, I'm going to get married and I'm going to have 2 kids and then I'm going to adopt 2 kids. And I think every little girl says it. And when I said it, I actually really meant it. I grew up with cousins that were adopted. I had no separation in my head. I mean, they were even Korean and it didn't even,
They were family.
They were just my family.
Yeah.
They were always my cousins, so I didn't know any different. Funny, my cousin's daughter, Kristen, didn't even know they were adopted. And we all laughed at her. We were like, how could you not know? Like, they
look a little different.
They're Korean. And she goes, well, I just thought those were the kind of kids
so
that
cool,
Aunt and Uncle made. So that's like our funniest family joke, because, I mean, that's how much we didn't see.
Right.
A difference. They were just family.
Right.
So I knew I always wanted to adopt when I got older. And I knew that I wanted to help as many children as possible. So fostering was definitely something I had on my head in my head as well. I was just trying to figure out if I wanted to adopt first and then foster, or foster and then adopt. Like, you know, so I just wasn't sure. And then after talking to an amazing woman at Carolina Families Connection, Lane, she convinced me that I wanted to foster.
Okay.
And I'm glad that she did, because it was life-changing.
Yeah.
In that moment. And like I said, I always wanted to do it, but like, you know, you just keep waiting. Wait till I have enough money. Wait till I have a big house. Wait till I get married. Wait till...
You could always come up with a reason why now is not the time.
Right. And so every year I watch that TV special, A Home for the Holidays, right? And I think it was like that, you know, night in 2012. I hung up, not hung up the phone. Like it ended, and I was like, what are you waiting for? Just do it already. And so I just started like looking up online, and like I just sending off emails and leaving voicemails for people. Like it's like midnight, and I'm like, just call me in the morning. And Lane was the first one to respond. And and so that, I mean, like, that's really how it started, and it was great. And I went, Lane and Richie run it together, and I went through my MAP classes there. And amazingly, I got so many calls, but the timing just was not right. So by the time I finished my MAP classes, and they send it off to state, and you wait for your license to come back, and you're waiting for the call. Well, my really good friends, Jeannie and Chad, had asked me to marry them.
Oh,
so
that's neat.
Yes, and I was so excited about it. So we were at their house, and it was February, must have been February of 2013. I was finally licensed, and I didn't even know it. Okay. And I was at their house to go over their vows with them. And my friends, Mary and James, were there too. And their son had just started karate, and he was so excited, showing me some moves. He's grown now, so he's going to be a little bit embarrassed about me talking about him. Hi, Morgan. His name's not even Morgan. It's Jordan, but I refuse to call him by his right name. So
you always change the name.
I always change the names. So he was showing me his karate moves, and I thought it was like adorable. So he didn't even know the Karate Kid. So I went into like the crane position.
Yeah.
I was in socks on a wood floor, and I slipped, and I like broke all the bones in my foot. Like at that moment, I mean, and that moment there took away my ability. I mean, I had to have surgery, steel plate, like 6 months of my life laid up, like just gone. I couldn't marry them. I couldn't even go to their wedding. It was awful. Like, I mean, it was awful. And all of a sudden, like the day after my surgery, the calls started coming in.
Like after all this time, like when that unfortunate event happens.
I just kept putting my head down, going like, how is this possible? Like, how could I've been waiting so long, and like they're calling me about this baby, and they're calling me about these 3 girls, and they're calling about me with these twins, and like my heart's going, Ari, you're kidding me. But everything happens for a reason. And then like I healed, and I went up to New York for something, because I'm originally from New York. Okay. I went up to New York for something. I remember I was in Manhattan staying with a friend for a couple days, and I was and the phone rings, and they have a baby for me. And I'm like, I'm in New York, but I'll be home tomorrow at 11 a.m. Like, can you like have somewhere for it to just go tonight? And they were like, no, the person has to take it now. And I was like, I can't catch a break here, right? So fast forward, and it's a Tuesday, August 2013, and my phone rings, and I'm finally home.
Okay.
And walking in a boot, but walking. And it was for 3 kids. And of course, that's the way it works. In case anyone doesn't know, I signed up for 1 kid between 0 and 5. They called me with 3.
What were the ages?
2, 11 days before 8, and 2 months before 10. So 2, 7, and 9, but they were really just about 8 and 10, my boys. And I, it was like what do I say? Yes. And you only have like a minute. Like
you have to decide. Like,
you have
right
to
there.
decide right then and there. And I'm like looking at my dog, and I'm like, dog, it's me and my dog. It's me and my dog. I've never been a mom. Aunt to everyone. Never been a mom. And I'm like, 3 kids like that. And I said, bring them. And like that night, I was mom to 3. Wow. And it's crazy.
What a change in just like a couple hours.
A few hours, and that was it. Like my whole life changed. And I very quickly realized that there were some severe behaviors.
Okay.
Very severe behaviors. So I would talk to the social worker, and I was getting the same thing every one of our families gets. Well, they just need to feel loved and safe. They just need to feel loved and safe. And so I was like begging for a psychological assessment and begging for them to get some sort of treatment. When they told me, I only got their ages, their sexes, and where they were picked up from.
So you didn't really know anything about their history?
I didn't know anything.
Are they allowed to tell you?
They're supposed to.
Okay.
But they don't. So, all I really knew was where they were picked up and the sexes. I didn't even know their names until they got to the front
crazy.
door.
Wow.
But I remember when they pulled up and I saw these 3 children walk out of that white DSS car, and that was it. I was in love. I mean, I was willing to be a foster mom and help with reunification if that's the way that it went. Unfortunately for their biological mother, it did not go that way. She herself is probably, my guess would be, untreated developmental trauma disorder. The cycle just repeats itself and repeats itself. So, we pray for her, me and the kids and all that. Like I just think that, she didn't have someone in her corner advocating for her to get the type of help that she would have needed. And still needs to this day, and it's sad. But that's what happens, that's the cycle I'm trying to break with attached families.
Yeah. Because
without the proper treatment, that's the future for my sons and so many others. Well, not my sons, because Evelyn, that happened.
Yeah.
But, so, advocating. But so they started, I think it was January or February of 2014 now. They started talk therapy with a counselor. Okay. And
did you notice behavioral issues like immediately?
I did. It's funny. Okay. I was just talking to my coaches from C20 the other night, and we're trying to figure out what my pitch is. And one of the problems with, I feel, they allot 3 minutes for the C20 pitch, and I'm not complaining. I promise everybody in the world, I'm not complaining. But if you're doing a C20 pitch for something new and innovative for homelessness or, deafness or, language, something like that, people already know what it is. So you don't have to spend any of your time in your pitch.
You just explain, you give a 3-minute pitch on, here's our solution.
Right.
With yours, you have a lot of education that you need to fix first to explain what the problem even is. and then here's what we're doing to solve it. And it's like almost impossible to do that in 3 minutes.
Thank you.
I get it, which is why
it's not possible.
I'm sure you'll put something together that will be amazing.
I'm going to put something together with my amazing coaches that's going to be great.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, people are going to be in the audience going, I don't know what she's talking about. I've never heard of this.
Yeah.
Because there's just not enough time to get people to understand that this isn't bad behavior. This isn't bad parenting. This is their brains honestly did not develop properly, but we can fix it. Mm-hmm. So I fought and I fought and I fought and I fought. And then they told me that if the behaviors would stop if I signed the adoption papers. Okay. So then they'd actually feel safe and they'd know I love them. But in between.
Oh, they said that would fix the behavior?
Yeah, that would fix the behaviors. All I had to do was sign the adoption papers. But, through that time of fostering up to the time I signed the adoption papers, I cried every night.
Yeah.
Because what I was being told was they just need to feel loved and safe. These behaviors are getting increasingly worse over these 2 years of fostering. So who's failing? Me. Mm-hmm.
So that's what you felt like because it was getting worse. Your assumption was, I'm doing something wrong.
I'm not making them feel loved and safe. No matter what I do, they don't feel loved and safe. So I'm not a very good mom. And I don't know why. Mm-hmm. Because I love these children desperately and I would die for them.
Right. Right.
And so it was very hard. It's even more difficult because a large majority of these children on the outside, where they literally don't feel safe, they have charming, manipulative personalities. So wherever we went, they were the best behaved, funniest, sweetest, charming. I mean, my youngest, he could charm you out of the deed of your house. I'm not even kidding. The kid, born politician. So I am having all these severe issues at home, but everyone in my life is seeing this. So no one's believing me about how bad it really is. Okay. So they start to make me feel crazy. And the boys do a lot of gaslighting. Do you know what that is? Okay, yeah. So the boys do a lot of gaslighting, and then they're trying to make me feel crazy. Meanwhile, they're stealing from everybody. That, if they get told no or we can't do that this minute, they're just breaking things. I mean, gosh, 2018, my youngest broke the hot water heater, the HVAC system, and all within a couple weeks of each other. When I say destructive, I'm talking you have to I'm broke as a joke. You can't replace. Those aren't cheap fixes. You can't replace a HVAC unit and a hot water heater, both within 2 weeks. And we had just come back from a trip that was the treatment itself was $12,000 for him out of pocket.
Wow.
Because insurance didn't cover it. So I thought it was important. So we went to Minnesota. So just $12,000 for the treatment. We had to be there for 2 weeks. And so that's, flights, hotels, food, eating out every meal basically. So it was a fortune. And then my dad, who's watching my other son and all, the dogs, he's like, the garage door opener is broken and the HVAC system, there's no, it's not working. He's going over. So he's like, I'm like, okay. And so I don't even know what's wrong until I get back. And then I get home and a hot water heater is also broken and coming through my ceiling, and then stuck things in to make the blaze and burn out the motor of the HVAC unit when he was mad at me. And then he had stuffed a whole bunch of stuff that he was trying to hide from me in the drain pipe where the hot water heater would be able to drain out. So it couldn't drain out. So it overflow. like whatever makes, I don't even know if it's a motor, whatever makes that thing work, stopped working, and right through my living room ceiling, you know, is where it.
And so this all happened within a very short period of
2
time.
weeks.
I would have lost it. I don't know how you kept it together. I would have lost it.
2 weeks. No, I tell everybody all the time, I have a severely morbid sense of humor. And if I don't laugh at these things, I would be in a straitjacket by now.
Okay.
Like seriously, in a straitjacket. And I have it easy. I am not my families who have children who have like murder plots against them.
Wow.
If you read any news article that says child killed parents, I'm telling you, they have developmental trauma disorder. It's on a spectrum like autism. So you have the less severe.
There are degrees of it.
Right, many degrees. So you have, those that, they're just charming, manipulative, gaslighting. They steal, they lie. And by lie, it's not to get out of trouble. Nonsensical lying, completely nonsensical.
For like no reason.
For no reason at all. For no reason at all. Like, oh my goodness, I just had the greatest conversation with Jeff, and he's, gonna come over and play and da-da-da. And I'm like, okay, awesome. And then, I go in the backyard and I'm like, hey, Jeff, nice to meet you. And the kid looks at me like I have 7 heads. And I'm like, you went to Billingsville? And he's like, no, and so my son's trying to get me back in the house, telling me this kid doesn't speak English, so I can't talk to him because it's nothing my son said was true. Meanwhile, he didn't have to lie about that because this kid could have come over. Like,
there's no advantage to him.
Why did it have to be some Jeff from Billingsville? It didn't matter. So it's just not like the lies are not for what a typical neurotypical human being would lie for. That I get. And so that's where you have issues with other people too, because you're like, oh my goodness, he just like the lies. And they're like, well, that's normal. Every kid does that. And you're like, no, you don't understand. It's not normal. Oh my goodness, he broke the thing. Da-da-da. Oh, that's normal. Every kid does that. Kids play, they make mistakes. I'm like, no, you don't get the degree that I'm referring to. So myself and my families, I call everyone in attached families, my families, they start to retract and isolate themselves because their own friends and families are starting to feel like they're crazy or they're bad parents, or because we know what our children are capable of. We watch them every second when we're at an event to make sure that safety and no stealing or we're doing it for the safety of all the other people there, but then we're being attacked for, oh my God, give the kid a break. Why are you, so like they don't understand. They don't know the whole extent of it. Right. And so we're so judged all the time. So we isolate ourselves, number one, or we lose friends and family because they think we're awful parents, so they don't want to hang out with us anymore. And so it's sad. Yeah. How long after you start taking care of them that you noticed like something, this isn't normal, like something is wrong? 2 weeks. I need to get help. Back to your original question. I'm sorry. No, you're good. Most people, you'll hear they get a honeymoon stage when a foster placement first comes in, and it's called the honeymoon stage. Okay. And that's when everybody's on their best behavior and perfect and happy and nice and sweet and adorable. And sometimes that can last for 6 months. Some people get a 6-month honeymoon stage. I've actually heard one family got it for 2 years before the kid really showed their true colors. And I kind of chuckle because they got dropped off with me on a Tuesday, and I remember going to my parents that Saturday because they just thought my youngest was he wasn't my youngest my youngest son. Was so adorable. He was just so adorable. Where my older son is a little more standoffish and doesn't have that charming, manipulative side. Okay. So my parents personally were worried with this almost 10-year-old and everything he must have seen and been through. Like, was I going to be in danger and could I handle him? And like I walked in on Saturday, I'm like, you're worried about him. I'm telling you right now, that one's going to be every gray hair on my head. Right. And they just didn't believe me. They couldn't. What are you talking about? He's so precious and adorable. He has the spotlight the entire time he's in the room. He sure does. He sure does. And he needs it. Mm-hmm. And if he doesn't get it, there's a problem. You know, no, it's no one else's birthday. It's never Mother's Day or Father's Day.
He likes to be the center of attention.
It's all about him all the time. And he is adorable. But there's only so many times you can hear that kid's so darn cute. And of course, I'm switching up some language for your listeners. But like I hear it all. It's like, it's constant. I mean, constant. And I remember my mother saying one time, you don't light up when he walks in the room. You're like, you should light up when he walks in the room. And I was like, what part of he just did A, B, C before we got to your house did you not hear? Mm-hmm. Like, you know, I'm not going to give like too many, but like, you know, it's like, it's hard to just let that go and like light up when you have this child that is, they don't have he has no empathy back then. He had no remorse for anything he did. He has since, through a lot of hard work and almost 7 years of, you know, putting in the work and the bonding and the attachment. He now knows what empathy is. He now feels remorse, not all the time, but he's showing remorse. My oldest is, I would say, just about, if you could use the word cured, just about cured. He's doing phenomenally. Okay.
And how long did it take for you to find the care that they needed? Like, what was that path like?
That path was exhausting, grueling, crying all the time. I lost count of the amount of counselors and therapists that came and went in and out of our home or that we went to see. Since nothing that's proper that they need is covered, you're forced by insurance to just keep doing the same things over and over and over again that not only don't work, but have actually been proven to make things worse. So I'm trying desperately to get my children help, and they keep forcing me into things that make them worse. But if I don't check mark their boxes, they won't let me move on to the next phase.
Wow, that's so backwards.
It's awful.
So was a lot of the problem like they didn't recognize it as they wouldn't he was undiagnosed, not diagnosed correctly?
He's diagnosed.
They just, that you couldn't get the care that they needed?
They don't cover it. They don't. I say all the time, and when I started in North Carolina, now I'm, you know, I live in South Carolina. And so obviously the Carolinas, you know, are my starting point. Eventually my families are all over the country, but like eventually I'm going to hit every state, because the fact of the matter is this is what I kept saying when I was in North Carolina, but it's the equivalent everywhere. It's like if I were to get on the news or on your podcast and tell the public, my son has cancer, but insurance says that they'll only put a cast on his leg. He's got bone cancer, but we're going to put a cast on it. But a cast doesn't fix bone cancer. So 6 weeks later, they take off the cast and they're like, well, he should be all better now. And you're like, no, he's actually worse because the cancer spread. And they're like, oh, well, we'll just have to put another cast on because we don't treat cancer in North Carolina.
That's so frustrating.
We don't treat cancer in South Carolina. So if I were to say that, public would be outraged.
Right.
Outraged. They would be lining the streets of Raleigh protesting to get my son proper treatment wherever he had to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's weird how people connect a physical ailment or physical illness with, I don't know, it's like more tangible to people, but like there's this mental aspect, emotional aspect that is just as, if not more important than the rest of your body. But
100%.
I don't know.
I don't know why first of all, the stigma should be gone.
Right.
Like enough is enough already. America.
Do you think it's gotten better? Since you've been in the process and you've been through the worst of it.
Better for me, okay. Absolutely. Because I am so out there. I took a chance and I was scared when I first came out publicly because I didn't know if my neighbors were going to talk to me anymore. I didn't know if my son's parents were going to allow them to continue to be friends with my sons, because I represent all my families. So I have to say the worst of the worst, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's my child. You know what I'm saying? I represent everybody. So if I say, murder plan or actually attempted murder, that doesn't mean my kids did that. Yeah. It means it can get that severe. Right. And there is this spectrum, and we need to be treating it. And instead we're ignoring it, and it has become DSS's dirty little secret. Like they don't want people to know about it. And so they retaliate. They don't like it when you talk out and say the truth. They fear that telling the truth to people will stop people from fostering and adopting. I believe just the opposite. Right now, across this nation, DSS, CPS, it's different depending on what county you live in and what state you're in. It has a very extreme shortage of foster parents. And they have a large number of one-time foster parents never do it again. Okay. So I believe fully that is because they are not training properly, preparing properly, and giving the right background information, the proper treatment for the child, and the support to the family that takes that child into their home.
Do you think it's on DSS's part? Do you think it's lack of knowledge, lack of resources?
I think that, first of all, not lack of resources. Okay. DSS makes billions of dollars a year in this country. I don't know whose pocket it's going in, but it's not going to the children, and it's definitely not going to the foster parents or the adoptive parents. I know that fallacy still is out there, that people think foster parents do it for the money. That the money that the foster parents get wouldn't even cover a week of what it's like to have these children in your home.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. So
that is a fallacy. I want that stated loud and clear. No one is doing this for the money. Yeah. So no, they get billions of dollars, and they actually get depending on the state, a $5,000 and $10,000 bonus for every child they place. That was something that the Clinton administration put in. Okay. And I'm not knocking that the Clintons did it. I think when President Clinton enacted it, he actually thought he was helping solve the problem.
That more kids would get placed.
Right. He said, no more lifetime foster care. These biological families have 1 year to get their program done. And there are exceptions where if they started at like month 9, like that, a judge will extend it 6 months or whatever because they started and they are working it. So there are some exceptions, but President Clinton said 1 year, and then if not, we're terminating parental rights, and that child is up for adoption. And if you get that child placed and then also get that child adopted, you get this bonus for doing that. So it started from what I believe was a good place in his heart, but it turned into a money-making business for DSS. Well, now, I want to get more children.
Right. Yeah, because more bonuses.
Right. And so now they are actually just taking kids, whether with or without proof, and I mean, it's documented. There is so many documented cases. I mean, I just posted 2 this morning. I mean,
I'll have to look at that. Wow.
One was a married couple of doctors, and luckily they were both doctors, so they had enough money to hire all of the specialists and lawyers they needed to prove that all of this stuff was lies, falsified documentation. They did it to me. DSS falsified documents on me.
Like about the history of the kids?
No, about yes. Well, yes, they falsified documents in a file. I was able to prove it with my attorney at the time, and in court, and the judge actually sided with me and
Jeez, wow.
and called them out on the fact that, you know, what they did was disgraceful. And now South Carolina's doing the same to me. Because
you think if they'd see like a case like that they would like investigate it more or put something into place.
Yeah, no.
And I feel like that's a pretty serious offense.
When they do it, they like, you know, all hands, and they don't like they are not held. People think that they're government employees. They're not. People think that they have more power than they actually do, and they lie and they threaten and intimidate, I should say, the homes that they go into. And they do this, and then they get people to sign things. Don't let them in your home, ever, and don't sign anything. Save your children. Because what happens is DSS is now causing more trauma than what we would actually have in this nation from abusive parents or neglectful parents. Because they're ripping their children from homes, which is a traumatic event.
Right.
And it can take actually truly good, loving, fabulous families, make them go broke, lose their house because they have to hire an attorney to get their child back. And it could take them 7 months to a year to prove in court that none of it was true. But now they get their children back, but they're not the same kids.
Yeah.
They're not getting the same kids back.
Mm-hmm.
And this is being done every day in America. So now we've created more trauma. And it's devastating. And so attached families, you know, our main goal is to support our families as a whole. So that's, you know, we're the only one of our kind in all of America. We offer support and advocacy for the families. We offer help with IEPs and 504s for free. We have a 24-hour crisis line that our families can call. We will advocate on speakerphone and record with the police, with CPS, with schools, with hospitals. I mean, I had one woman who was actually like basically held hostage in a hospital. Like security guards at the door like wouldn't let her and her son leave, and it was like all illegal. They just break every constitutional right, but nobody, CPS, DSS, is not accountable to anyone. So when you have a hearing with DSS, a social worker from that DSS office is the one who presides over the hearing and makes the decision.
So that's just like a conflict of interest.
Is it now? Come on.
Wow.
So when you appeal the denial that you know you're going to get, guess who you appeal to? Another social worker that works in that office.
And I imagine a lot of people don't know how this whole process works until they've been through it, and it's been just a disaster, right? For like you didn't know.
I didn't know anything. I was
you experienced it.
Naive, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed woman who actually believed that DSS had the best interest of children at heart. I always. Social workers wouldn't lie to me. because they have the best interest of the children at heart. So if they're saying that all I have to do is love them and make them feel safe, then they know what they're talking about. Like, they've been doing this for years. If my children needed more help, you know, they're not actually my children. I'm their foster mom. The state is their guardian. And obviously, if they needed more help, the state would get them more help, right? I'm trusting all of this. I'm believing all of this. Every one of my families would tell you the same.
Right.
We all believed that. I had never in a million years thought that there was any corruption or retaliation or, you know, what they call, you know, medical kidnapping from DSS. Like, I would see stories like that, honest to God, and I feel so much shame and guilt over it. I would ignore it. I'd go, oh, that's a drug addict just complaining because they got their kids taken away. Or that's an abusive parent who's just complaining about DSS because they got their kids taken away.
You assume it was the parents'
Of course.
issue.
Of course I did. And I'm sure all of society thinks the same. I'm sure there are people in society, when they see the things I post, are assuming the same. Guess what? I haven't had my children taken away. I adopted 2 foster children who were taken away rightfully, by the way. But so you're hearing from me, who hasn't had her children taken away. But I'll be honest with you, I live in fear of it every day because they are that retaliatory. So that's what, and I say that because I figure the more I say it, the less likely they'll be to falsify something to take away my children.
So remind me, why do they have an incentive to take away the kids?
They get bonuses for placing them.
Placing them in a different home?
Yes.
Okay.
Bring someone into care, that brings money into your office. Place them, that brings more money into your office. Get those rights terminated and place them into an adoptive home, and that's a bonus for you. So
they can just kind of send these kids around?
The money. It's all about the money. And honestly, I think personally, I think DSS, CPS across the country needs to be completely shut down. Completely shut down. I think mandatory reporting needs to go away because it's been proven in several studies that it's not helping children at all. Like, it's not helping the children who are really in need, because it's being used as a retaliatory thing between, like, well, I broke up with my boyfriend or I divorced my husband, and so I'm going to make a report on him. Or if you get in a fight with, you know, while you're trying to advocate, I shouldn't say fight, like advocate for more stuff at your kid's school, principals are known for it. They'll just call DSS so that to get you off their back. I've had DSS called on me twice. Both times were when I called out someone for not doing their job properly. They are the ones that turned me in both times. One was my cardinal caseworker for my son. So she was supposed to be finding him treatment options. And I called her several times a week for, I think, 5 straight weeks. And my son still didn't have any meds, didn't have a psychiatrist, and didn't have any therapy. And so it was Super Bowl Sunday, 2017, I think. And he had gone into a rage because he hadn't done anything that was asked of him. And he was, you know, just kind of being, you know, awful behavior all day. And so I had kept telling him that you have until 6 o'clock to get these things done. It's just that simple. You have to be structured and kind of like non-reactive with children with trauma because they're looking for the reaction. Like, they feed off of it. So, you know, they'll say some awful things so that you'll react and then they can feel like they got the better of you. So everything is very like this, you know, it's just matter of fact when you're working with a child of trauma. And so I said, you either do it or you don't. Those are the choices you're making. But if you do it, you will be watching the Super Bowl with us. If you don't, you won't be. You know, and so, you know, he just continued to do whatever he wanted. And it was like 10 to 6. And I was like, I don't see how you're getting it all done in the next 10 minutes. And he's like, what do you mean? And I was like, I told you had until 6 o'clock. I said, you're not watching the Super Bowl with us. And so he lost it. And it's what we call a rage in our world. And, you know, the screams never, I mean, when he first came to me in 2013, that kid could scream for 16 hours straight at the top of his lungs without ever taking a break.
Wow.
You can listen to some videos. They're out there. It's mind-blowing that parents can live through it for years at a time. So I sent to the caseworker, like, this is what I'm living with. You need to get us services. I had called his previous person. I followed our normal house safety plan, whatever. So I said, or I'm going to your supervisor tomorrow. Like that, like, you know, I hear from you in the morning and we have a plan, or I'm going to your supervisor because enough is enough. It's been 5 weeks. My son doesn't have meds, doesn't have services, doesn't have anything. And I did hear from her Monday morning that she turned me into CPS. That was the first time. And the second time was when I took him to the psych hospital, which used to be called Billingsley or Randolph, but now I think it's just Atrium over on those two roads. And I was told by the psychiatrist on staff that they felt his behaviors were, you know, because he was self-harming, and that's why we went. They thought his behaviors were severe enough that he needed to go to the state mental hospital at that point.
And they keep him there? Is that how that works?
Right. And so I was upset at first, but they kind of convinced me. And it was like right around, it was, I guess, like the 22nd or 23rd of December. And I spoke to his psychiatrist and his therapist and his neurofeedback person and, you know, my advocate, and everyone was like, no, you really should do it. So I called back and I said, okay, you talked me into it. So yes, he can go there. And so they were like, okay, so, you know, we'll get everything ready for the transfer. And I was like, okay. And then they called me on, I think they called me on the 23rd, and they were like, come pick him up. He's being discharged. And I'm like, excuse me? And I knew what was going on. They didn't have enough coverage for Christmas. And they didn't have a bed open yet in the state hospital. So this child who they said needed so much vigilant care was all of a sudden okay to come home. So I said, no, I'm not picking him up. You just said yesterday. He miraculously got cured overnight. Like I've had this child since 2013. He didn't miraculously get cured overnight. So I said no, only because, like I said, I knew the game they were playing. And so then they called DSS on me and said it was abandonment. I was abandoning my child. So I said, saying no, he needs to stay in the hospital is a real abandonment type of mother. That's absurd. But they had to call, he's up here in North Carolina, but since I live in South Carolina, they had to call South Carolina DSS, who immediately, you know, it's two things because of what they said, but they're also releasing him. I'm now in a spot that so many of my families are put in every day. If I picked him up, they were going to remove my other child for endangerment.
From the other child?
Right. My other child who was at home. But if I picked him up from the hospital and brought him home, I would be accused of endangerment, child endangerment, and they'd put this child in foster care.
So you're like forced to pick between.
But if I don't pick him up, I'm abandoning him, and he's going into foster care. Either way, I'm getting arrested, and one of my kids going to foster care. And I was like, I stood firm, and I got the news involved, and I had the families were petitioning, and luckily I did not get arrested. And luckily neither of my children got put into foster care because I got so many eyes on it. But do you know how many of my families have been put in the same position and arrested and sitting in prison right now for the same decision I was put in? It's an absurd thing to do to a parent. And I'm a single mom. Mm-hmm. Married parents are forced to live apart. It's go to jail, or your husband moves out with these kids and you stay here with this kid.
That's so broken.
Come on. Yeah. It's beyond broken. It's disease. So shut it down. Get rid of it. It doesn't work. Mm-hmm. It's a money-making machine, and the money's not going to help these children. Mm-hmm. They're causing more trauma. In my opinion, if you truly believe, as a doctor, an educator, a neighbor, a family member, a citizen, that a child is in danger, a child is being abused, a child is being neglected, left alone for days at a time, call 911 like we do with every other crime and let them investigate. Sending these people, 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, like no experience, no understanding, into the people's homes to take their children when they don't even have a clue what's going on. And they don't know the situation. They have no clue. They've never even heard the word RAD. Yeah. They don't know what developmental trauma disorder is. They're clueless. Must be the parents' fault. So
the solution is just take the kids away.
Just take them away with no investigation. Yeah.
So you're going against the grain here. How did you end up getting the care that your children needed?
I had to leave my career. I have spent my entire life savings and cashed in all my 401ks to get my children the proper care. And they still need more. I mean, well, my oldest is, I would say, he's pretty good right now. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean he won't need a tune-up of, some biofeedback in the future. That's what we call, his brain, might, have some issues with trauma, from being triggered by something. And then we would just, do a few sessions of biofeedback again or whatever if needed in the future. But, he's really good right now. He had a wonderful therapist that had come into his life and really helped him open up. And my youngest is, for the first time in his life, honestly ready to be different. And that's a big part of it too, because the older they get, if they don't want to change, I don't think there's anything that we can do. Like, it's almost like an addict, or, like if they don't want to quit drugs, you can send your kid to rehab 1,000 times, but if they're really not,
if they don't want it, it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. So I do believe that as along with the brain being able to be healed, like you still have to want to be a different type of person.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my youngest is now at the point where he wants to be different. He's ready. Whereas he was always like, tomorrow's going to be a better day, Mom. It'll be tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to change. Every day for 6 years straight. Tomorrow he was going to change. And now he's at right now. And he's been making great decisions and great choices. Awesome. And, I'm proud as can be of him. And I fear, like, here's the deal. It's factual. So, like, listen up, America. Yes, it will cost money to give these children proper treatment. But what are we changing in the end? These behaviors that are out of control that schools keep talking about, children that just society keeps talking about that are out of control, mental health issues and diagnoses that are through the roof. These children will no longer be diagnosed with a mental illness because they're not really mentally ill, but they have their brain isn't developed properly. So they get all these other DXs that aren't really true, but they have to give them something. So they just say, well, this DX includes that behavior, and this DX includes that behavior, and this DX includes that behavior. So here we go. But no, if you fix the brain,
you got to get to the root cause.
Right. We cut down on mental illness. We cut down on out-of-home placements. We cut down on the drug issue, opioid addiction, and these children aren't going to be growing up turning to drugs because of the way they feel. We fix homelessness. We fix the amount of people in prison and jails,
violence,
crime, shootings. Violence. The money in the beginning. Literally think about how much this country would change if we were helping these children who have trauma brain, you know, I say that, you know, as a shortened version, who have this trauma brain early on. And it's not just foster kids and adopted kids. I mean, that's obviously where I started and where I have to focus, but I support and let in our support groups, everyone, you know, children who and families who live in neighborhoods that are, you know, overrun by gangs, and there's drive-by shootings and, you know, things like that, drugs everywhere. It's not necessarily their mom and dad. They also have,
but they could encounter something.
Right, they have developmental trauma. Trauma is being created for them. Some of them are, you know, it happens in utero. So say a mother is pregnant and it's a scary pregnancy, or you know, like, you know, one of those like on the edge types. You know, and you don't know which way it's going to go. So her cortisol level rises and she's nervous and she's this and that. So the baby feels that. Then they're born with RAD, DTD, the trauma brain. So it's 2% of the regular population has this condition. Okay. But it's like, they say 45-50% of foster care. I would say more like 80%. Because I don't think they're really looking at it on the spectrum. So I think the lower end ones, they're not really counting unless they're like the, you know, murderous or suicidal. And I think that those are the only ones that they're counting in that 45-50%. Like my older one would have never been counted in it because he just wasn't that severe.
Yeah, but if you let it get too severe, it's like at that point it's too late. Well, maybe it's not. I mean, there's always hope, but like
there's always hope, but it's too late for whatever crime they commit.
Exactly, that's what I mean.
It's too late. I was just having a conversation earlier. Brittany Johnson from WSOC TV. She's interviewed me several times. She's been following this story for a while, and she really does care about the situation. But she introduced a mother to me this morning who I'm not going to name, but she's been doing therapeutic foster parenting for over 2 decades. And she has been reaching out for 3 weeks. No, I don't know. It happened 3 weeks ago. She had been reaching out over and over and over again, saying that the child you placed in my home is too dangerous. Like, he needs to, but no one was helping. And she kept saying, when is someone going to respond to me? When he actually hurt somebody, like something has to happen. And that woman was stabbed 3 weeks ago by this child. And she was stabbed more than once.
Did she survive?
Yes, I spoke. I spoke to her today. Yeah, but she's recovering. But that shouldn't have happened.
Right. She was asking for help. She was asking for the resources. It shouldn't have happened. And she actually was interviewed by Brittany Johnson this morning. So I look forward to seeing her on the news. But yeah, I'll look out for that.
I had to tell her, like, it made me sad because, you know, she's so ready to join my cause now and be outspoken and this and that. And I, you know, sadly had to let her know that I want her on my side speaking out, but they're probably not going to let her continue to foster if she does. And she's like, well, I would hope they would still let me foster. I've been fostering for 22 years. You know, that's my life. I love helping children. Why should I be penalized because that's just the way they work. So hopefully, because I said that won't happen.
The blame will be put on her for what happened, and then she'll be restricted from being able to foster again.
They'll just blacklist her for speaking out. They'll just never call her again, unless they're embarrassed by the fact that I just said this.
Wow.
See, I like to put them on point.
Hey, it sounds like something needs to be done. Like the system doesn't seem to be working.
It's not working.
And like you said at the beginning, it's a cycle. So if you can stop the cycle early on, you prevent so much more pain, physical pain, emotional, mental. You prevent so much.
That's what attached family's goal truly is. We can change society. We can actually change the course of a child's life. And if you could change the course of a child's life, would you help? This child is going to get kicked out of 3 different schools, finally have to be homeschooled or drop out, turn to drugs, turn to crime, eventually be imprisoned. And that's if they're not violent,
Right.
I won't even go into what the violence is. I bet you if you went into a prison today and interviewed, like really sat down with every single person that's locked up and gave them the ACEs test score, to see if they had severe trauma in the beginning of their life, I would bet 90% of them did. And maybe 10% were just born bad. Yeah. I don't, I don't know. I don't like to think of any child as born bad, but, maybe, just maybe, 10%. I can't say 100%. I'm just trying to give you what I feel like. I bet you 90% of those people sitting in jail had high ACE scores.
And that's what does that stand for again?
I knew you were going to put me on the spot, and I
just read it. I read it before.
I'm only blanking right now because I feel under pressure.
No. I know, me too, because I just read it.
I know exactly what it stands for, and I'm like blanking and embarrassed about it. So you have to hold on.
No, I'm sure you use it in the...
I use it constantly, but I always use it constantly as ACEs, and now adverse childhood experience.
Adverse childhood experience, that's right. Okay.
Oh my goodness, that was embarrassing.
And that's what drives those events. Could be abuse, all kinds of abuse, neglect. Those are things that really drive the disorders that you're talking about?
Yes, but it could also be witnessing it. So if you're a child and you have a mom that's, a severe drug addict who beats up on the dad, or, I was just trying to make it fun and be different for a while, not make it all the guy's fault. If they're witnessing domestic violence, if they're witnessing, people treat each other poorly, that is affecting them. So it's not just, they don't have to be the one beaten, but if they're witnessing it, it's affecting their brain. My children were kidnapped twice. My children were shot at over 300 bullets in the police report by a gang. My children witnessed prostitution, not just witnessed the act.
Wow.
Beaten, starved, left alone for so long they don't even remember. My oldest was responsible for all the ones that came after him. So at the time, there was 6 after him, 1 before him. So he was responsible for all these babies. So he'd hide them under the bed or put them in the tub so they wouldn't have to see and deal with. And, he always protected them. He'd go out and he'd sneak into gas stations and try and steal milk, or, my favorite story from him is that he would, steal the mac and cheese box, and then he'd take water and he'd put them in cups and put it out in the sun until they heated up, and then he'd put the powdered cheese in and then put it over the macaroni. And he was like, macaroni was hard, but at least we had something to chew on. Wow. So, just heating up water in the sun. I mean, that first story, I was like, oh my goodness, you're killing me, kid, right? But, but stories that would give you nightmares. And my families are living stories that would give you nightmares, and no one cares, and no one will help. And so, and there's even the professionals like therapists and stuff like that, they're not trained in it.
Yeah, I was going to ask, are there specific therapists that have been trained to deal with this?
I would say you'd have to go to someone who does biofeedback, neurofeedback, and also truly understands trauma and attachment therapy. And we have interview questions for anyone who needs them, so that you know the real ones from the fake ones.
Yeah, that's
everyone says they know trauma, and now it's like, the new in word is trauma informed. That's the new it word. We're trauma informed. We're trauma informed. So like I am disgusted by trauma informed, because that means they took a 1-hour class online and now get to use the certificate. And that's even at schools and daycares. If you see, we're trauma informed. Yeah, like they took a 1-hour online course. They're not.
It means nothing.
They're not trauma informed about anything. Right. So trauma informed annoys me, because guess what? I'm trauma informed, and I don't have any certificate to say. Well, I do have a certificate to say it, but I only got that because I had to become a certified family partner. So my statements, like my hashtags are like let's not be trauma informed, let's be trauma healed. Like enough with trauma informed. I'm over it. I'm over your hip new word, because you're not doing anything for me. I have so much respect for that woman that was just put in charge in California, who, of course, I'm blanking on the name too. But she's a beautiful woman, and she's so intelligent. She's a doctor. She understands ACEs like it's going out of style. Yeah. And she did a TED talk. I fell in love with her. I was like, loved her brain. I was like, yes, she gets it, right? But she was hired and has been given millions of dollars in California to give every single person in California the ACEs test to find people with trauma. And that makes me angry, because I don't need you to go find people with trauma. I got thousands for you right
have no problem
here.
Finding them.
If you want to, what are you going to do once you find them is my question. Yeah. Great. So you found another 4,000 with trauma. We already had 40,000 sitting here waiting for you. What is the plan?
Yeah. What's the solution?
So millions of dollars are being thrown at giving everyday citizens ACEs tests when they go to the doctor as part of their physical. This is the bright idea. Yeah. This was the bright idea. This is what millions and millions of dollars are going to. And I'm like, how many kids do we have in the foster care system? Why don't we start there?
Right. You have a group of people that you know.
We already know. I'll give them to you on a silver platter.
It's like you can't even take care of the ones that you've identified.
So why are you going out looking for more? Yeah. How about we come up with this great plan, give all these kids neurofeedback, biofeedback, attachment therapy, and then once we start getting all of them healed, then we can go out looking for more. How about that? As the founder and president of Attached Families, as the person who truly believes that every single one of my families is family, as a mother to 2 children with severe trauma, that makes me so angry, because we already have so many people in desperate need of help that are being blatantly ignored, and arrested. God, so many of my families have criminal charges, have not only lost their adopted children, some have also lost their bio children, and
that's insane.
It's not fair.
That's insane.
I'll start crying because I love my family so much. And when I tell you, you read a story, if you read a story in the newspaper about this monster or these monsters that that were so awful to a child, and everybody, the mob wants to get on and
Right.
like da-da-da. Here are your keywords. If it says they had video cameras, if it says they had a bucket in the kid's bedroom, if it says there was this taped square and the kid wasn't allowed to move past that, if it says there was no mattress in the bedroom, I could keep going on and on. You can immediately know on my life, those parents are not abusing or neglecting their child. Those children have trauma brain.
Mm.
That bucket is in the room because that child pees in the room and refuses to use a toilet. So that's why the bucket's in the room. That tape on the floor is so the child knows that that's where they can play because that's the piece of the room that the video camera can capture. That's to keep that child safe and other children in the home safe and the parents safe. If it says the pantry door is locked or there's a bicycle chain on the fridge and you all want to be horrified and say that that person is a monster, I was once you. If the pantry door is locked and there's a bicycle chain on the fridge, it's because that child binges so much they throw up. They will eat the entire pantry and the fridge in the middle of the night while you're sleeping. If you're a parent that chooses to sleep at night, they will eat it all in one sitting and puke in every single inch of your house. So for the child's own health and safety, you lock the food up to help them, not to starve them.
Right.
So these are some key words when you're reading these horrific, not investigative journalism at all.
Yeah, they're clickbait headlines.
Right. Yeah. But the mob now these people can't go out. They can't show their face. They're monsters. But no, we need video cameras in every room, not only to watch our children, but to protect ourselves from false accusations. Yeah. Some of us need to lock pantries and refrigerators. Some of us have buckets in bedrooms. And no matter what I say, I will always include myself, whether I do these things or not, because I represent all of my families. Some of us have, like I said, buckets in bedrooms. Some of us, you'll see that the mattress isn't there because there's only so many times a child can put a hole in a mattress and fill it with feces, and you replace it, and you replace it, and you replace it. We are not Rockefeller. Mm-hmm. So it's probably out back where it's been washed down and it's trying to dry out because for the 50th night in a row, it was urinated all over and feces stuffed in it. So don't just believe everything you read because anything taken out of context can make people look like monsters.
Yeah. And then they become even more isolated.
Yes. And they're terrified to come out. So now you have, oh my goodness, they had tape on the floor and the child wasn't allowed to leave that one piece of square and they starved them and there were locks on the refrigerator and the pantry door was locked and, they didn't even have a mattress and there was a bucket in the bedroom. Of course you read that story and you go, oh my God, that poor child. Cameras everywhere. The child couldn't make a move without being videotaped. What animals those parents are. Lock them up. Lock them up. And DSS knows what the real deal is, but what do they have done? They have them locked up. I have one family who's under arrest for starving their daughter. She not only refused to eat and was anorexic and they used food as a control. It's one thing they control. They can either shove it all in their mouth or they can choose not to eat it all. But that's the one thing in their life they have control over, or at least they feel like that you can't control them. So she would refuse to eat. Her parents took her her guardians, took her to, I think, something like 14 different eating specialists. You know, she was, you know, hospitalized several times for bulimia, like all this stuff. And they're still they have all this documentation from all these different doctors that they were doing, like following doctor's orders and doing every single thing they could to help this child with her eating disorder, facing life in prison for starving her.
Wow.
Starving her. They actually had therapists in the house 8 hours a day, making notes of refusal to eat.
Like literally trying to do the opposite.
And DSS still had them arrested and had her taken away.
That's so sad. Wow.
It's not right. So I stand for all my families, no matter how severe their child's behavior is. They open their homes and their hearts to them. And they not only are amazing foster parents that they continue to stick this out, amazing adoptive parents that continue to stick it out. Some, unfortunately, were so severe that the adoptions has to be disrupted, you know, and so that's like something I'm trying to make stop as well, like, because I want to keep families together and I want to help children, and I don't want kids to have to go back in the system.
Right.
But do you know, if you have children, if you take it, let's say that's a senator guy or that congressman who did it a few years ago. He took in those 3 girls who had the murder plot to kill his sons. And they wound up, you know, kept asking for help and help wouldn't come. And so to keep their sons safe, the only choice they had was to rehome. So they rehomed the girls. And I mean, it turned into a very unfortunate situation. But if you can't handle it, if it's so severe and your life is in danger or your children's life is in danger, and say you went back to DSS and you're like, this kid's gonna kill my other kid. Right. Like if you want to dissolve that adoption, you get arrested for abandonment. They do put the kid back in foster care. You now have to pay the state child support on that child from prison, and you can never foster or adopt again. You can never work in a field. Say you're a teacher, you can never work in a field with children again because you're now on the list of the registry. Yeah. So if they do con you into adopting a child you can't handle, and then you admit you can't handle it, you are screwed.
So what are parents supposed to do in situations like that?
I don't know. Why don't you tell me?
I don't know.
And they don't have the money for the treatment.
Right.
It's like
because the insurance doesn't cover these treatments. Insurance doesn't
cover these treatments. No. So
is there any progress towards? No.
And they need, like, say they need neurofeedback 2 to 3 times a week. That's 300 times a week. Yeah. Say you have more than one kid with it because you took in a sibling group. So now $900 a week, and you only have to do it for 2 years. Who's got that money? Right. Or they have some amazing developmental trauma disorder or reactive attachment disorders centers in this country. I think there's like 3 or 4 of them. And all you have to do is pay them $600 a day for the next 2 years. And they'll help heal your child. And they have great success. But I'm sorry, I don't have $600 a day. Do you?
Nope.
Do you even know anybody that does?
No.
Because I can promise you, it's not the people who are fostering and adopting, you know, the ones that get blamed for doing it for the money all the time.
Yeah.
We don't have that kind of money. We're just normal, everyday folk. Never said the word folk in my life before. I figured I'd give it a shot.
It worked. So the therapists that are covered by insurance don't have the training. Right. Is that right? Okay.
And they would never, at this point, they would never pay for neurofeedback therapy or biofeedback
And that's a
therapy.
very specific type of therapy, obviously.
They only cover talk therapy.
So, I mean, have you maybe you're thinking about this with attached family, but like almost if you can get enough corporate support and grants and individual donations,
everybody's
almost providing
getting it. Everyone's getting it.
Okay.
Everyone's getting it. I'm starting with the Mightier program, which is a biofeedback program that families can have in their home. And the Mightier also, with the money that attached families would have to pay per family, it not only supplies the whole system, which is video games that monitor heart rate and help change the development of the brain. Harvard Medical School and Boston Children's Hospital did multiple studies, and it showed a 64% decrease in rages and outbursts over a 12-week period only.
Wow.
I think 42% decrease in oppositional defiance disorder, and an overall 19% decrease in parental stresses. Wow. You know, I mean, parents in general, just of neurotypical kids are stressed out, but that's just over a 12-week period. So my goal is to at least start with that. I want to get start here in the Charlotte area, greater Charlotte area, and then all of North Carolina, all of South Carolina, all of everywhere. I mean, every child deserves this. Mm-hmm. Every child deserves it. And if, society is not going to step up and the government's not going to do what it's supposed to do with our taxes, and they're going to allow these ridiculous bonuses and these ridiculous removals of children and these ridiculous arrests, and what they'd rather pay for drug treatment facilities and, methadone clinics and prisoners. And I mean, it's absurd.
Right.
If that's where they'd rather put their money, then, keep doing it.
If ESS isn't going to take care of it, if the insurance companies aren't going to, it's like, all right, well, then I think the community just needs to come together. We're going to do our own thing. We're going to do and we're going to figure it out. And
then we're going to prove how awful it is that you've known about this since 1940 and have done nothing to help these children. How many lives could have been changed?
Right.
And you got to go. It's not just the kid. It's not just the family.
It's generations.
It's generations. But what about the kid who killed that person? That whole family's traumatized now, and they've lost somebody. It's this awful. We can actually. I'm not saying 100%. I'm not sitting here claiming that there'll never be another drug addict or crime, or that's not even close to what I'm trying to say. But I am saying without a shadow of a doubt that we can change the course of children's lives in a large majority. And that's worth it. Mm-hmm. That's worth it.
Absolutely.
And society has to start caring, because I can't be the only one that cares about all these families. And that's not true. I shouldn't even say I apologize to my amazing board and all my great volunteers. I love you all. You're fabulous. I'm sorry I said that sentence like that. We need to do this.
Yeah.
And we need help. And we need it now.
It sounds like there needs to be some education too, and people like you and who are as passionate and loud. And I mean that with respect.
No, it's fabulous. I'm fine with it. I am who I am. I own it. I'm cool.
No, I think what change requires, people and multiple people like that who are willing to go out and do something about it, and not just wait for things to change or just complain, but actually come up with a solution. And unfortunately, you had to go through the hard way. A lot of your families are having to go through the hard way. But I think you can get to a point where, okay, this can be different. It doesn't have to be this way.
Yes. And I got to be honest with you, my goal was never to be an advocate. My goal was never to be the founder of a nonprofit organization. This is not where I saw my life going in any way, shape, or form. I had a happy life with a wonderful career. I had kids that needed a lot. And I had my hands full, and I was really had my hands full. So much so that, when all of this started, like I didn't even, like my parents couldn't even believe that, and you want to open a nonprofit and all of this, like, are you out of your mind? Like they didn't get it. They didn't understand. I took their not understanding as not supportive, but that my parents are not supportive people. Right. Like they support anything I do. They just don't always understand. And I think they worry about me because I think they think I put too much on my plate. But I really only function with a lot on my plate. Yeah. I don't know how to function without it all. But, they understand more now. My brother moved down he had originally moved to Pittsburgh like 26 years ago. He moved down to the Carolinas to help me with my boys as well. Neat. So he's like 9 minutes away. And like he gave up his everything. He gave up his life, his career. I mean, he gave it all up to come help me and support me so that I could do this, so I could leave my career, so I could open attached families and help other families and bring education and awareness to society while supporting families where they have no one to talk to because nobody else understands unless you're living it. Right. And helping them advocate for their children because, advocates charge like $100 an hour. Yeah, I'll come help you with your IEP for $100 an hour. Yeah. But my families are already broke. Right. They're broke because the kid broke the HVAC and the hot water heater in the same week. Yeah. They're broke. So they don't have $100 for an IEP expert, so we offer that. And so we offer support, we offer advocacy, and then we offer, now we're trying to get into helping offer the kids the actual treatment, including the glass children. And that's what we call siblings of children with trauma, because so much focus is put on the child with trauma. Our children over here, it's like we see right through them, the glass children. They don't get the necessary attention that they deserve. So they start to have PTSD from the chaos in the house and things, and all of that. So they would benefit from the Mightier program as well. And so we want to be able to, and if we can get the units in the homes, everyone can use it. And so that's just a start, and then eventually hopefully we're big enough, and we would really like to see some sort of programs. I mean, that would be from the government, some sort of programs that what's the word, would they give you back something for doing something, like a stipend, something like that, for more therapists to get trained in neurofeedback. And that, because the training's so expensive and the equipment is so expensive. Okay. Yeah. And so to get trained in that, so many people, people want to, but they're like, I just don't have that kind of money.
And I feel like the people that are going to do that are the ones that are passionate about it and know about it, because they're probably not in it for the money. Right. So that's a harder group to find. Right.
I have a girlfriend up in Boston, Sherry. I know she would get trained in, she's a therapist. She'd get trained in neurofeedback in a heartbeat, but it's a ridiculous amount of money. Right. And there are others out there I know that would love that kind of training. I also believe that every PRTF, which stands for Psychiatric Residential Treatment Facility, which is the only place we can send our kids when they spiral too far out of control. And then, insurance might allow them to go for 3 months or 6 months, and then they kick them out, whether they're better or not, But if we could get neurofeedback in every PRTF and be giving the children that treatment while they're there, think of how many kids we would be sending home actually better. Mm-hmm. This is doable. I'm not asking for for the world to turn the sky purple. I'm asking for proper treatment that has been scientifically proven to help children who have developmental trauma disorder to actually be given to them. Mm-hmm. That's all I'm looking for, and it's I feel like I'm asking for the whole moon sometimes. And I'm like, why is it so hard?
Yeah.
Why aren't we doing this? Where is all the money going?
Right.
Because I don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even get $5 from my families.
Yeah.
You know, like the community I am representing can't donate to me because they're broke.
Right. Yeah.
I need
that's
help.
Tough.
I need help.
Yeah. Have you been able to get in front of any like businesses or any companies in Charlotte?
We're working, you know, we're trying.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
It's not easy, and it's not homelessness. It's not.
I know. It's not like
anorexia.
What you're doing is so. I know. When it's not like one word that people can understand, and it clicks with them, and they understand the problem.
Yeah, it's
like this conversation has been so helpful for me in understanding this.
I'm sure it's so much longer than you expected it to be, too. I'm sorry.
I love this. This is great. But one thing I did want to ask is developmental trauma. How close is that to like PTSD? Is it similar or are they different?
They're different, but can be fixed by the same machine.
Okay.
So yes, all of our veterans coming home from war, I think every one of them should be given allotted time with neurofeedback therapists, no matter what, whether they show signs of PTSD or not. Because I think as soon as they come home, I think it would help their brain to regulate itself to now we're back in civilization. And it would definitely stop and help any triggers that would have happened if we just let it go. So I think neurofeedback, as well as EMDR, which is the eye movement rapid destabilization machine, which I used to see. I learned more myself as I go. Like, so I used to say, like, these kids need neurofeedback and biofeedback and EMDR. But the more I learned, EMDR is an amazing therapeutic tool, but it's more for that one trauma.
Okay.
So not what our kids experience, which is, trauma over trauma. Like their brain did not develop. Yeah. Right. Their brain did not develop.
So what happens? I mean, does their brain get stuck? Does it?
Oh, it definitely gets stuck. It's got to be like a bottom up approach because like so down here. I'm not a really good neuroscientist, but like
the brain like develops.
Right. It's missing pieces in the earlier stages. The pieces that are responsible for cause and effect thinking. The pieces that are responsible for empathy,
like the emotional intelligence,
right? Yeah. Emotionally stunted at like the age of like a toddler. A toddler is gonna get mad at you, but you're holding their toy and just rip it out of your hands and then hit you over the head with it. And you're gonna say, no, you don't do that, but you're not gonna be mad at the kid, right. But when it's a 16-year-old, it's a little bit different. If they rip something out of your hand and hit you over the head with it. That makes sense. But they're stunted emotionally in toddlerville.
So this therapy that you're referring to helps rebuild that or build that and bring it kind of back up,
right?
To where it should be?
Helps make the new connections.
Okay.
Because of brain's plasticity. I hate all these words. That was the hardest for me. But what it means is that the brain is always growing and making new connections and new whatever neurons and blah, 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 blah. So neurofeedback helps it make the new connections. So like say when you're doing, so biofeedback I explained is the game. Neurofeedback can be either done with a game or done with like just watching Netflix. Like so when my kids did neurofeedback, they just watched Netflix. Now the electrodes are connected to their head. And if the brain isn't doing what it's supposed to be doing in that moment, the Netflix picture gets very, very small and very, very low, and the kid can't hear what they want anymore. So the brain starts to fix itself, and as the brain fixes those connections, the screen comes back and the volume gets louder, and then when it's the full screen and the perfect volume, you know, it corrected itself.
And this happens like real time?
Real time, while you're watching. Oh,
that's crazy. I've never heard of anything like that.
Oh, it's awesome. It's ridiculously awesome. But that's, the brain is correcting itself in that moment. And the same thing with the biofeedback that's at home is they're playing a video game and it's measuring the heart rate and the this and the that. And if you're not responding properly, the game, you can't jump anymore. You can't turn left anymore. Yeah. So if you want it to work, your brain has to change. Your breathing has to change. Your heart rate has to change. So it teaches the brain and the child how to self-regulate.
Interesting. Wow. So, and how much of the therapy involves them like going back and I guess reliving or dealing with that trauma? Is that, I'm not a psychiatrist.
No. That's fine. See, I believe that because that's what everybody wants to do, right? They just want the kids to talk about
that's what you hear.
Trauma.
It's like, okay, go back and let's deal with it.
Talk about it and you're done, right? But no, that the brain has to be corrected before you can ever touch the true trauma.
Okay.
So once their brain is corrected and all the neurons need to be firing and whatever happens in the brain, again, not a neuroscientist. Once that's all corrected, then I believe you can sit down with someone who understands trauma and attachment issues and work with them along with your parent.
Okay.
And if you have a child with developmental trauma disorder or reactive attachment disorder and the therapist does not require you to be in the room at all times, they have no idea what they're talking about. There's your first clue.
That's good advice.
So someone who really understands it knows how important that the attachments and bondings be made to the parent or the caregiver and not to them.
To the therapist.
So, and they also know that that a child with reactive attachment disorder, any type of attachment disorder, or this developmental trauma disorder, which is what I really believe everything is, will the manipulation, the gaslighting, and the triangulation, like tell you something but told the parent something else, tell the parent that you said this, blah, 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 blah. So having that parent in the room doesn't allow for that. So it only allows for honesty and bonding between the caregiver or parent and the child with that therapist's guidance. Unless you're me and I just made up my own type of therapy on my own and did it because I couldn't find anybody and I ran out of money. So I created my own and it worked.
Wow.
But
do you think that there's ever a point where, I guess you kind of already talked about it, where it gets harder to make those corrections? Like, is it the earlier the better?
The earlier the better.
Kids can.
And here's another sick and twisted fact. So sick and twisted. Everyone says the earlier the better, but when we call with our 2, 3, or 4-year-old, we get told they're too young for every program.
Wow.
So
wait until it gets worse.
You go, America. The earlier the better, but we can't take them because they're too young. It's so twisted, my new friend. It's so twisted.
Well, I mean, what are some, I mean, you've talked a lot about it, but are there key indicators early on that maybe aren't as severe that would give some ideas like, okay, there's something going on here? Or, I mean, can it like show itself in different ways beyond 100%. Just like violence and destruction?
100%. So if a child walks into your home, let's say it's a foster kid. Okay. So if that foster kid's like placed in your home and like that day or within a couple of days, it's like, I love you, mommy. That's not normal. It's just not. Children don't get taken from their biological mothers and then call someone else mommy and I love you within hours or days. It's a sign. If they're super clingy in the beginning and all huggy and lovey-dovey, it's a sign. If they're indiscriminately affectionate with everyone and anyone, it's a sign. Like if you're out at the store and, you know, your 4-year-old is running up to someone in the cheesecake aisle and there's no cheesecake aisle. Yeah. I must be
the dessert aisle.
I want cheesecake.
Cheesecake sounds good.
Apparently I want cheesecake because I just made up a whole aisle in the supermarket filled with cheesecake in my brain.
Sounds like a good aisle.
You know, and they're just like running up and giving hugs and acting all cute and putting on their little show for them. These are all red flags. Okay. Like they're red flags. And that's stuff you'll see before you ever see behavior.
Wow.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, new foster parents need to be aware of this kind of stuff. Like before the problem becomes even apparent, maybe start educating. Okay, these are things to watch out for.
100%. That's why I try and put as much information out on, you know, my Facebook page, which links right into my website, you know, wherever you go, if it's Twitter, if it's Instagram, if it's Facebook, if it's YouTube, if it's a website, like it's basically all got the same information because I'm trying to share wherever I can catch somebody.
Right.
Because it's such an important topic. But yes, it can happen biologically. I don't want every single brand new pregnant mom out there to get, you know, terrified. Yeah. You know, because it's so rare for it to happen in utero, but it does happen. So there are some amazing parents out there who have a child with RAD or developmental trauma disorder who biologically gave birth to them and they didn't beat them or neglect them. Yeah. You know, something happened. You know, say it was a traumatic birth. Say say the child needed an operation right away, or say something went wrong with the mother and there was all this stress in the, you know, delivery room and she's being rushed off for surgery. That literally affects that child and can cause developmental trauma disorder. So, you know, there are people that like, you know, think it's only abuse and neglect. No, you don't have to be a bad parent. You know, it's a shrunken number, you know, it's only 2%. But see, that's what DSS lives for, that 2%. Because they get to go, oh, it's not that. That's so rare. That only happens 2% of the time.
Right.
Yeah, it happens 2% of the time in utero. Like it does, you know, that number like is so, you go to the foster care and adoption community and that number skyrockets. They used to think it was just kids that were in like Russian orphanages. Yeah. That, you know, like that had those issues. And like with more time and more insight and, you know, more children being ripped from their families for no reason whatsoever, more trauma is being created. You know, I jokingly said to my mother like 2 weeks ago, and I did say it jokingly, but you know, sometimes you say something as a joke and then you start like pondering it.
Start thinking about it.
And like, you know, people might think I'm crazy, but like, I don't care. So I said to her, she said something about like my birth. And I was like, they knocked you out. You weren't awake for any of your children's births, you know, like they knocked them out back in the 70s. So, you know, my sister Beth Ellen in 1970, my mother wasn't awake for it. My brother in 1971, my mother wasn't awake for it. And me in 1976, my mother wasn't awake for it. And so, you know, and then they all of a sudden, everybody, oh, the drugs go into the baby, blah, 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 right? But I said to my mother, I said, what if it's because we're not knocking the mother out? What if it's because it went from a smooth, relaxing, coming into this world moment to
traumatic
coming into the voice you know and love, screaming in pain and desperation. And that's kind of traumatic, don't you think? So, I mean, I said it, at first I said it jokingly, and like I was thinking about it because I was like, yeah, I said that's probably why we have so many more trauma kids, you know, but they stopped giving the drugs. And I said it so flippantly. And then I went home and I was thinking, and it was weird because apparently it made my mom think too, because then I saw her the other day and she's like, I've been thinking what you said about not giving mothers drugs in the delivery room anymore. And she's like, it kind of makes sense. And I was like, you know what? I was thinking about it too.
I wonder how they used to do it, like way back in the day.
It's just they just knocked him out and the baby came out, and then the mama woke up and they placed the clean wrapped baby in her arms and everything was fine. But that baby came out, again, I'm not a doctor. Please I don't want 1,000 doctors calling me telling me, you know, don't give mothers drugs. But I'm just saying, like, back in the day, the baby came into a very relaxed, calm, kind of quiet environment. And now it's a very loud, scary, traumatic environment.
Well, a lot happens. Those last few moments of birth, like a lot happens from a developmental perspective.
Right.
So that's interesting.
So it was just, it's just like I said it jokingly, but now I can't stop thinking about it.
Yeah. I'll have to think about that.
Yeah. Right. I mean, just like, cause like I'm fine. Mm-hmm. At least I think I'm fine, you know, like I'm fine. And, you know, she was knocked out from my birth, you know, like, and it just, you know, all the, like those people, like everybody keeps saying it's getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. Well, a lot's changed for children in general. So, you know, everybody's going to kill me. So, you know, mothers aren't getting the drugs to knock them out. So it's a more traumatic, loud, whatever birth. Both parents are working.
Yeah.
So these children are going to daycares, most of them, and daycare workers aren't paid a lot, so there's a ton of turnover. So it could always be someone different taking care of them. So they're losing that attachment.
Right.
I think I'm not saying that parents shouldn't work or, you know, moms should stay home. It's just, there's been a lot of changes, but everyone just thinks that it's the parents that went wrong. You know, like, so it's just like, they just think it's bad parenting now and you're not disciplining your kid, or, you know, how many times I've heard in my life, oh, give me that kid for a week, I'll fix him, right? Yep. You know, give me a break. Like, yeah, okay. So, you know, they want to blame, but they're not looking at everything that's actually changed. And that might be why our children are changing. Yeah.
What do you think about like the impact of technology? I mean, do you think that's good or bad? Like, rather than, you know, I see when we go out to dinner, you see a lot of families like sitting around talking and playing games, and now like a lot of the kids are on their phone. Do you think that has any kind of impact?
Well, I personally don't like that. I mean, that's a personal preference. But I think that the use of technology is coming. Well, some people are giving it to their 2-year-olds. So sorry, I forgot. You actually saw my eye roll there. But but I think that the technology is okay for neurotypical people in spaces, you know, like as long as you're connecting and talking at some point, you know, like so if say it's not necessarily, you know, at the dinner table, like I don't agree with that, but that works for your family. Like, you know, but you all get on the couch at 8:30 and watch your favorite show together. Like, you know, like is technology taking away some like human interaction? Yes, I guess you could say yes, but without it, I wouldn't have found 5,000 families.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's
who are now able to reach out to me. And yeah, I have to be on my phone for that.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's connected the world a lot more than it used to be.
And so some of my families are literally in other countries. Like, they're saying it's just as bad in every other country. Like, they're having problems in Australia with developmental trauma disorder, in Canada, in China. I mean, it's not just us.
Yeah.
But I can't fix Australia. But I will fix America.
But if you get like attached families, like this structure in place that works, I mean, you could almost take that anywhere, right?
Oh, absolutely, because I'm brilliant and it's a wonderful idea.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, I believe you.
But like, yes, theoretically that could happen. Because like I said, we are the only one of our kind that is focusing on servicing the whole family. And we're not just a support group. We're not just an advocacy group. And we're not just a help the children group. We literally want to be all of it. Mm-hmm. And I know we can, because we're already doing it, and it's just a few of us. So as we grow and I can actually hire staff and have, multiple crisis lines, and it's not just my cell phone number when someone's in the middle of a crisis, because right now it's just me 24/7, 365, my number's on the internet kind of deal. But, my goal is to obviously grow that. My goal is to help every single child in America. And if I go beyond that goal, amen, brother.
Yeah.
That'd be wonderful. Mm-hmm. Maybe even it happens after I'm dead, like my kids take over attached families and open it in Australia and Russia and China and Canada. And that'd be an amazing legacy to leave. But at this point, I just want to help my families that I have. Mm-hmm. And I want to be able to help them all.
Yeah.
And I want to be able to find more and then help them too.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be trauma informed. I want to be trauma healed.
Amen. I love that. So how can people help?
Money.
I mean, that's honestly like, it's pretty much as simple as that. Like,
it's two things for me, honestly. Money would be very helpful, but if you can't afford to donate, sharing our message would be amazing. Like clicking that share button to educate the people on your Facebook, on your Twitter, on your YouTube, on your Instagram would be huge, because the more people that share our message, the more people we're educating and bringing awareness to. Right. And that's what we need. We need society to care.
Right.
We need society to care, because children are worth it. Every single child. I don't care how they behave. You look beyond the behaviors and you'll see trauma.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, your children are lucky to have you.
I am blessed to be their mom. I'm not going to lie. It has been the hardest,
I believe it.
Almost 7 years of my life. The hardest, the most damaging, moments of depression, moments of feeling like a failure, but never one moment that I wasn't grateful to be their mother. I wasn't grateful that they were placed with me, that whatever you believe in, God, the universe, fate, you don't believe in anything, I don't care. All those other children, all those other babies, the broken foot changed the course of my life. It all happened for a reason, because I was meant to be their mom.
None of this would have happened.
No.
Right?
None of it. I was meant to be their mom. And I believe in my heart, and I'm not trying to be like snobby or anything. Like, if it wasn't me, they would have just been bounced around the system until they aged out because no one else was going to put up with their stuff.
Right. It had to be you.
I'm just being honest. No one else was going to put up with it, and they were already older, you know, and so it just gets harder. But they're my whole world. I don't know how all your listeners or whatever feel about foster care or adoption, biological, whatever, you know, there is no, for me, difference. I don't care what age they came to me at. I don't care that I didn't create them. They're my sons, and they know they're my sons. I am their mom, and I don't say that like making it up or like I'm in a daydream. Like it's things that they do and they say, and you just know. And I was meant to be their mom. Like everything that was blocked in front of me, that was a blockade. Every time I was like, "Are you freaking kidding me? Why is this happening?" It was happening for a reason, and I just didn't know what it was, because I was meant to be their mom. And I am so blessed because they are amazing, intelligent, funny, talented. My oldest plays the clarinet beautifully and it is so artistic. My youngest is he's got one of those brains, like if he reads it, it's there. It doesn't matter. Wow. He could sit down and like just tell you the whole Bible word for word. It's like insane. And I'm not like even a religious freak. I'm just like, he read it one day just to prove that he could like repeat it word for word. Awesome. He's so into history, like historical facts. Like conversations with him are so interesting because he teaches me, like he just has all these facts. Cool. Like, and he's got so many facts that like sometimes we're like, what is it? Like, and he'll be like, it got me testing him. How many African countries can he name in 60 seconds? And I'm like, okay. And he's just like rattling them off. And I'm like, I don't even know if he's right, but it's him. So it's him. So I know he's right, you know? And I'm like, I can say Africa, you know, like, which isn't even, you know, like that's as far as I go, you know, but like he is so intrigued with history that like being deep in conversation with him is like beyond interesting. And then my oldest is like this math whiz. Like he sees it in the air. Like he doesn't even have, like he's just one of those people that sees it. And I have a rule that every night, like at dinner, instead of just saying how was your day, like, no, you have to tell us what you learned, and it can't just be tell us what you learned. You have to be able to teach the whole family it. So they come home, and so like we have to like we learn something new every day from the other person. Like, and sometimes it's like cool. Paper and pen is out, and they're like, and then you do this, and then you go like that, or you know, like so like you have to, or just it's you know sometimes it's just like a historical fact or this, but it's always something that like I'm like I didn't know that, right? You know, like I learned so much, like so like you know. My oldest is usually like doing something like mathy and showing me something. And I was like in the math Olympiads when I was a kid. And wow. He's like so beyond me. Like I have like no clue what he's talking about, but I stand there and I'm like, yeah. Last year in 9th grade, like he came to me with his book and he's like, I don't like, what is, and like the homework assignment from the teacher that he wrote down. And I'm looking at that and I look at the book and I'm like, sorry, dude, you passed me. Like, can't help him anymore. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. There's no more help coming from me. You have now passed me in mathematics. I promise you, I've never learned that. I promise you that. So, you know, like, they're great kids. Mm-hmm. They're not their behaviors. They're not the impulsivities they can't control or the choices that they make that aren't always great because, you know, they don't recall cause and effect. And that's not who they are. Yeah. And I'm blessed with the fact that I was lucky to at least be able to see inside, to know who they really were. all along and fight to get that person. So, you know, I still have a fight to go, but they're awesome.
That's amazing.
And they're my reason for
that's why you do this. Yeah.
This, you know, I couldn't, and that was it. Like, I didn't want to do this. I want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm tired. I have 2 children with developmental trauma disorder. I'm tired. But I just kept getting this, like this feeling in my stomach. Like it was like I would get sick at night thinking there's other people out there who are crying right now, thinking they're failing as a parent. And it's not their fault. I have to tell them it's not their fault. Right. And like, that's how it started. Like, I didn't even dream this big like that. But once I got in, I was like, oh no, well now I'm all in, you know? But like, at first I was like, well, I just have to find these people. Like, I have to let them know it's not their fault. I will never judge them. There's no judgment allowed in my group. So like, I don't care what is said. If you don't like it, scroll by. If you're okay with it and want to give advice or want to have that's fine. You want to give your experience, that's fine. But judgment, out. Yeah. Not allowed. We get enough judgment in this world. Attached families is and always will be a safe space for families to speak freely. And we, my board and I, attached families, we did take we do get small donations here and there from the community. We did take some of that money and we invested in our own Zoom channel. So it's HIPAA compliant. So we can do live support group meetings several times a week. And then, we'll also do in-person support group meetings here in the Carolinas. And then I train and give the necessary tools to people in other areas to open their own attached family support groups for in person. Great. So, I want to reach as many families as possible because I just remember how awful I felt when I felt like it was all my fault and I wasn't making them feel loved and I wasn't making them feel safe and I was, failing them and they're great when they're with my parents, but, they hate me and I didn't want, and once I realized and had the right diagnosis and no one was lying to me anymore. You
don't want other families to go through the same thing.
I wanted to find them all. I wanted to love them all. And I do. I did. Even on my YouTube channels, like I end with a kiss and I love you, my families, but like every video, because I love every one of you so much. You're really all my families. You're all my families. And I think about you all the time. And I actually feel guilt when I'm doing things like this and I'm not looking at my phone because sometimes it's scary for me. I'm like, someone could be in crisis, but I'm
you want to be there for them.
Yeah, I'm doing this right now, or I'm in a meeting for my son, or I'm, we have therapy sessions, we have neurofeedback sessions, so it's but those few moments, or I do have to sleep for 2 hours, and so I'll stay up at night in case, for crises. I'll usually go to bed, when the kids get on the bus to go to school around 7:30 in the morning, and I'll sleep for a couple hours and then get up and get back to it. But, that's my biggest fear is not being there when someone really needed me. But, I try to say it every day to my families that, every single one of them is a warrior. You're a warrior and just keep fighting the good fight. And I'm going to do everything I can on my end to get you all some help. You have my word.
Thank you for all you're doing. I mean, it is going to make the world a much better place.
I believe it.
It is. And I think Seed 20 is going to be a big help. So I look forward
only if I can explain it well enough in 3 minutes.
You will. You'll get it. You'll get it. And I look forward to hearing it. I'll be there.
I trust that my coaches will definitely help me try and figure it out. 'Cause they're amazing. But the same thing, they never heard of it. And, you know, and like, again, I'm not complaining. I'm like thrilled to be part of C20, but it's just one of those things. Everyone else's pitch, they don't have to explain what the problem is. They just get to give their amazing idea, you know? And I kind of wish like I could just go out and be like, I want to put the mightier biofeedback programs in everyone's homes of attached families and help children fix their brains, you know? Like, it's just...
it's a challenge.
So that...
But it'll be good.
I'll be figuring that out this weekend.
Yeah,
so.
and you are obviously able to convince whoever you met with for Seed20, that application, you're able to make that happen.
I bless you, whoever voted for us, because I did the application, but even like that, I was like, I hope that I'm conveying what the real situation is. I mean, look at you and me. I mean, we've been here for 2 hours.
Right. Oh, like, and I'm sure you could keep telling me more about.
I could go on for days and go on for days, and it wouldn't even be boring. Yeah. We could go get dinner and then come back, and like I could keep talking, and honestly, it wouldn't be boring, because it's taken me years to figure it all out and to like get to where I am. And tomorrow I could find out something else and be like, dude, it never ends.
Yeah. You're always learning new things, having new experiences.
Yeah, so but right now, like I said, with all the scientific data dating back to the 1940s and 50s, it's the neurofeedback and the biofeedback that's going to help these children. And it's 2020.
Right.
Like we're
let's get it together.
2 decades away from it being a century of this knowledge, and we're still not helping these kids. But we want to complain about the amount of prisoners in jail.
It's bizarre.
And the overcrowding of prisons, so we'll just let them out on the street because we don't have room for them. They'll help them either. Don't give them neurofeedback, and maybe help them not be a criminal when they get back out on the street. But like the overpopulation of prisons, the overpopulation of mental health facilities, no one ever has a bed. You know, the amount of drug use and the opioid epidemic, like all these things. They are all intertwined into trauma.
Yeah.
I'm not making this up. It's all intertwined. So let's fix it. Let's fix it. And I don't need an ACE test to do that.
Right.
I already know the people in the country that are traumatized.
Yeah.
I'm one of them now.
Yeah.
So we want a whole family approach, and we want every child in America to have the opportunity to take this path instead of this. And we can help them do that. So help us help them. Help us help them.
So where do you want people to go?
Facebook, they can just click the donate button. Facebook is really amazing because they don't charge us any fees at all.
Oh, that's nice.
And they don't take any percentage, anything, nothing. It's like we get 100% from Facebook.
So that's where you would want people to donate?
I would prefer that because it's 100%. And then, of course, you could click the donate button on our website. Fees are taken out of that. Or if you just wanted to like PayPal, it's just donations.attachedfamilies@gmail.com is the email. So, but usually like Facebook is just like the easiest way. You just click the donate button and off you go. And if you're listening or watching and you're still a check writer, our address is like everywhere on our Facebook page, on our website page. So,
and it's attachedfamilies.org.
Yes, attachedfamilies.org. And even though I didn't want to do this, I guess I used a word that everybody wants to put an ED on when they speak. It is not attached families, it's attached families without an ED. And I should have maybe come up with a different name, but we are attached families now.
Yeah.
So deal with it.
It is what it is.
Yep. No ED.
Okay. Attach families.
ATTACHFAMILIES.org.
Okay. Go check them out, everybody, and come to Seed 20.
Please come to Seed 20. Oh my goodness. Because here's a thing you don't know, or maybe you don't know. At Seed 20, one of the winners is audience vote.
Yeah.
So the more people that come to Seed 20 for attached families, the more votes we get.
Yeah. Yeah.
So come to Seed 20 and help us win. It's an amazing night. I hear all 20 nonprofits, which are all amazing, by the way, every single one of them. It's an honor to be in the same space with these 20 different people and nonprofit organizations. It really is. But everyone will have a table set up with their information. There's cocktails and appetizers beforehand. Then it's the big show with the top 10 that make it to the stage, and you get to listen to 10 awesome pitches, and then the audience gets to vote. I think the coaches get a vote, and then the judges there get a vote. So there's 3 winners. So if you come for attached families, you give us a better shot. So please show up.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's life-changing, honestly. Like, it's what inspired this whole thing and got me involved in everything. So
life-changing. And then even after all of it's said and done, there's more alcohol and dessert and socializing.
It's good food and drink.
So bring your checkbooks and drop them off at the attached family table too.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
But thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you for all your time. This was really eye-opening.
Thank you, and I look forward to knowing you more. Like, I want to stay in touch and stuff, and keep you updated on how things are going.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing what you're going to do in the coming years. I know it's going to be awesome.
I'm kind of excited. And you're going to be there for C20?
I will. So I'll definitely stop by your booth.
Oh, I'm so excited. Yeah. Wonderful. Vote for us. Shouldn't he vote for us, guys? He should vote for us. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of my families. You know how much I love you. Katie Rose, love you.